They didn't even ask who the father was. They didn't care. The second I said the word pregnant, my mother stepped back like I'd spat blood on her white rug. My father didn't speak. He didn't look at me. He just walked into the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and turned on the news like I hadn't just set my whole future on fire. I was 19, 2 semesters into college, top of my class, no history of rebellion, just one secret I couldn't hide anymore, and it was growing inside me. "I won't raise a whore," my mother snapped. Her hand trembled, but her voice didn't. She always knew how to cut without flinching. "You'll leave this house tonight." I thought she was bluffing. She wasn't. She tossed a suitcase on the floor, half packed with clothes she picked for me. Didn't even let me finish folding mine. No goodbye hug. No tears. Just judgment. And one final sentence as I stood in the doorway. "Whatever happens next, you brought it on yourself." My father's eyes never left the television. They told neighbors I ran away, told the pastor I had mental health struggles, told my cousins they'd tried everything, but I was beyond saving. In their version, they were the victims, and I was the cautionary tale. I didn't fight it, because they didn't deserve the truth. They didn't deserve to know who the father was, that he wasn't some boy from campus or a fling I couldn't forget. No, the father of my children was Elias, Crown Prince of Arundel, next in line to a throne older than the country my parents clung to so tightly. He had asked me to marry him. Twice. I had said no. Twice. Not because I didn't love him, but because I needed to see what I could survive without him first. That night, I slept in the back of a friend's car, one hand over my belly, the other gripping the tiny silver bracelet Elias gave me. He didn't know yet. I hadn't told him. I wanted to wait. I wanted the story to be mine first. People love to talk about shame. They love to watch it cling to you like a wet dress, heavy and humiliating. They love a girl with her head down, a girl whose story ends the moment her reputation cracks. But I wasn't a tragedy. I was a seed, and all they did was bury me deeper. My name is Layla James, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me, because the child they called a scandal became royalty, and the daughter they kicked out, she came back with a crown they could never touch. The day after they threw me out, my mother posted a photo on Facebook. Her and my father at brunch, smiling, mimosas, filtered sunlight, caption, "Sometimes letting go is the only way to heal. Please keep us in your prayers." She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. Her inbox filled with sympathy. "So sorry for what you're going through. You raised her right. Sometimes kids just stray. She'll come back when she's ready to apologize." Apologize for what? For getting pregnant? For not being perfect? For not bleeding quietly? They didn't just kick me out, they erased me. I stayed quiet. I watched from a distance as they turned my life into a cautionary tale. They told my childhood friends I dropped out, told family that I was struggling with substances. My aunt even texted me once, "We love you, but your mom says you're not safe right now. Let us know when you get clean." I was 5 months pregnant, living in a shelter, going to work every day with swollen ankles and no one to call. I wanted to scream. I wanted to post the ultrasound photo, tag them all, and write, "Here's the child you disowned, the one with royal blood." But I didn't, because I wasn't going to waste truth on people addicted to their own lies. Elias offered to step in. When I finally told him, he was silent for a long time. Then he said they don't deserve to know, but if you want them to, I'll fly there tomorrow. I said no. I wasn't ready to be the girl on the news. I wasn't ready for the world to look at me and say, "She got lucky." Because it wasn't luck that got me through those nights. It was grit, hunger, stubborn hope. I worked double shifts at a hotel front desk, then folded sheets in the laundry room on weekends. I slept on a mattress with no frame and read baby books under the light of a phone screen. Every time someone looked at my stomach and made a face, I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. I knew what my parents had thrown away, not just their daughter, but the future queen mother of a dynasty older than their judgment. I didn't speak up, not because I was weak, because I was waiting. Let them call me a failure. Let them preach forgiveness while they nailed me to a cross they built out of pride and fear. The longer they lied, the quieter I became. And the quieter I became, the more dangerous the truth grew. Because when it finally came out, it wouldn't just clear my name. It would bury theirs. I didn't tell Elias everything at first. He knew I was gone, knew my parents had reacted badly, but I kept the details vague. I didn't want him to see me like that. Bruised not from violence, but from being unwanted. We'd met during a study abroad program. I was tutoring international students in advanced literature. He was just Eli then, a quiet guy with perfect posture and eyes that listened before his mouth did. When I found out who he really was, His Royal Highness Elias of Arundel, he smiled and said, "Does it change anything?" It should have, but it didn't. He loved books. I loved silence. We both hated cameras. We were just easy. He wasn't supposed to fall for me, and I wasn't supposed to fall pregnant. But here we were. When I told him I was having twins, he cried. Not out of fear, out of awe. He placed both hands on my stomach and whispered, "They'll have your fire." I almost told him to come rescue me, to take me home, to bring me into the palace and let the world see I wasn't what my family made me out to be. But I didn't, because I needed to know what I was made of without a title behind my name. So he kept it quiet. He wired money once for medical bills. I sent it back. He offered a private doctor. I refused. "I need to do this first," I said. "For me." He didn't argue. He just said, "Then when you're ready, I'll be waiting." Some nights, I questioned it all. Was I stupid for walking away from a literal palace? Was I punishing myself to prove a point to people who weren't even watching? But then I'd feel one of them kick, or I'd hear both heartbeats in the sonogram room, and I'd remember I wasn't alone. Not anymore. My children would grow up knowing who they were. Not just royal, not just heirs, but survivors, born of grit, not just blood. My parents thought they'd ended my story, but I was just beginning to write the part they'd never be allowed to read. When I gave birth in a public hospital, there were no royal doctors, no golden cribs, no silk, just me, sweat-soaked and sobbing, whispering their names into the world. Leora, Thane, two perfect souls with royal blood and a mother who had learned to kneel for no one. When I held them, something inside me shifted. I didn't just survive them. I became undeniable. And whether the world found out tomorrow or 10 years from now, the truth was coming. And when it did, the people who called me shameful would have to bow to what I brought into this world. There was no fairy tale beginning. No red carpet rolled out when I brought the twins home. Just a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery, a second-hand crib I painted myself, and lullabies sung over the hum of a broken radiator. It was hard, the kind of hard no one claps for. But it was mine. I took on night shifts, answering phones at a taxi dispatch, cleaned offices on weekends, sold handmade baby wraps on Etsy in between feedings. And when the twins napped, I studied business, branding, supply chains. I taught myself what no one ever thought I'd need to know, how to build something that couldn't be taken away. I refused to let their legacy start with struggle. And slowly, the struggle started shifting. One sale turned into 10. 10 turned into 100. Elias watched it all unfold from afar. He didn't interfere. He supported the way I asked him to, quietly, respectfully, with faith. When the babies turned 1, he called me with news. The palace is ready, and so am I. The council agrees they must be acknowledged. I stood there with a dish towel in my hand, not sure how to breathe. "Layla," he said gently, "you're not a secret anymore. You're a story, a name, and our children deserve their place in it." I didn't answer right away, not because I doubted him, but because I wanted to walk into that next chapter with a spine stiff from standing tall, not from being carried. So I told him, give me 6 months. In that time, I opened a tiny studio space downtown, half office, half nursery. Started a brand around the wraps I used to sew by hand, twine and grace, a symbol of everything I'd done with nothing but thread and willpower. When the first press piece came out, Single Mom Side Hustle Supports Hundreds of Families, it wasn't about royalty. It wasn't about revenge. It was about work. about a woman who had been thrown out with nothing but her name and turned it into something worth remembering. And just as that article made its rounds, the invitation arrived, a gold-trimmed envelope with the Arundel crest, sealed and formal. No public announcement yet, just the first step, an official press conference. The world would finally know who the twins were, who I was, not as a girl who made a mistake, but as the woman the future bowed to. I thought about my parents, the way they'd shamed me, discarded me, lied to protect their pride. And I smiled, because soon they wouldn't be able to lie anymore. Soon, everyone would know the truth they tried to erase, and I wouldn't have to say a word. The press conference was held in the palace's east garden. Cameras lined the marble path. Guards stood like statues. There were whispers, rumors, tabloid guesses. No one knew exactly what to expect until I stepped forward. I wore a deep blue dress, not flashy, not screaming for attention, just elegant, soft, steady. Leora stood beside me, clutching my hand. Thane sat on Elias's hip, staring curiously at the microphones. The king and queen were there, not stiff or wary warm, welcoming, because by the time the press release was written, they already knew me. Not as a scandal, but as family. The queen had held my hand 2 weeks earlier and said, "You protected them before we even knew they existed. That's not shameful. That's royal." And now the world was about to learn that. Elias cleared his throat, stepped forward, and smiled. "Today, we introduce to you the future of Arundel. Our children, our family, Crown Princess Leora James of Arundel, Crown Prince Thane James of Arundel, and the woman whose strength brought them into this world, Layla James." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then flashes exploded. Reporters gasped. A few called out questions, but none of them mattered, because the story was already written. They were royal, and I was the mother of heirs. The moment went viral in under an hour. Clips played on every news network. Old photos of me resurfaced. People began piecing together timelines. And then came the second wave, the unraveling. A journalist from back home dug into the family history, discovered the public Facebook post from my mother, the brunch photo, the false narrative. An anonymous source confirmed my parents' lie, how they kicked me out, covered it up, spread rumors about addiction and mental illness to keep themselves clean. Their neighbors saw the news. Their church saw the press release. And suddenly, the very people they tried to impress were asking them one question: is it true? They tried to spin it, tried to say I cut them off first. But truth doesn't need a defense when the whole world can see it. One aunt emailed me, "I'm so sorry. I believed them. I shouldn't have. You look powerful." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The best part? I didn't say a single negative word about them. I never mentioned their names. Never corrected their stories with rage. I let the truth walk in the front door and sit down at their dinner table uninvited. And it spoke louder than I ever could. They tried to bury me in shame. But now the world was bowing, not to a scandal, to me. The first time I saw them again was at a charity gala. Not because they were invited, they weren't. Because they showed up, unannounced, uninvited, unchanged. The event was a fundraiser for single mothers in crisis. My name was on the banner, and Leora had just handed a bouquet to one of the organizers. That's when I saw them, my parents, standing at the edge of the crowd, holding glasses of wine they didn't pay for. My mother wore pearls again, like they made her forgiven. My father's suit didn't fit quite right, like pride doesn't sit well on an empty stomach. They looked older, thinner, tired, like people who had been clinging to status with fingers they no longer had strength to close. I turned slightly, made eye contact, didn't move. My mother came to me first. She walked like she expected cameras, smiled like the room still belonged to her. When she reached me, she took my hand. "You look stunning, sweetheart, just radiant." I didn't speak. She cleared her throat. We saw the press conference. The twins. The prince. It's all just. She stopped, looking for the right word. Surreal. My father hovered nearby, hands behind his back like a scolded schoolboy. We didn't know Layla, my mother said. We thought you were lost, that you were angry. You cut us off. I finally spoke. You threw me out. She blinked, like that wasn't the line she'd rehearsed for. And you told the world I ran away, I added. You lied to everyone. You told them I was unstable. Her voice dropped. We were scared. You have to understand. No, I said. I really don't. She reached for my hand again. I pulled it back. We've lost everything, she said quietly. The house, the business, friends. Her voice cracked. We just want to be part of your life again, of their lives. She meant Leora and Thane. My children, the ones she never asked about, the ones she would have let grow up thinking their mother was worthless. I looked at her, then at my father, who still hadn't spoken, and I smiled, not out of cruelty, but because I finally understood. They hadn't come for love. They'd come for proximity to power, and I would never let them close enough to steal it. So I turned back toward the photographer and took a photo with a woman from the shelter I'd once stayed in. The camera clicked. The moment passed, and I walked away, heels silent on the marble floor, heart loud in my chest. That night I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat beside my children while they slept and whispered the one thing I never got from my parents. You are not what the world calls you. You are what you rise from. I sent the letter because I needed to write it. Not for them, for me. It wasn't long. Just one page. No dramatic punctuation. No angry spirals of ink. Just words I had waited years to say in the simplest way I could. You were ashamed of what I carried. But now the world calls them royalty. And they call me Mom. That was the opening line. I didn't mention how they kicked me out. Didn't rehash the cold goodbye or the way my father stared at the TV instead of at me. Didn't bother reminding them how my mother said, "You brought this on yourself." They remembered. They just thought time would make me forget. But time did something better. It made me powerful, and it gave me clarity. I ended the letter with, "You chose distance when love was needed most. Now I'm choosing distance, not from hate, but peace." Some doors closed quietly. This is one of them. I sealed the envelope. No return address. Handed it to my assistant with instructions to mail it through a third party. Not because I was hiding. Because I was done. I watched her walk out with it. And then I tore up my personal copy and tossed the pieces into the fireplace. I didn't need to keep a record. What they'd done would never be forgotten. But I wouldn't let it shape me anymore. A week later, a royal portrait was taken. Elias, Leora, Thane, and me. Our first official photo as a family. I stood beside them, head high, shoulders back, nothing small or quiet about me anymore. The caption from a major news outlet read, "From exile to empire, Layla James, the quiet rise of a royal mother." My parents never reached out again. I imagine they read the articles, watched the interviews, maybe even saw me on television, standing behind Elias at a state dinner, listening to him introduce policy on education reform. But they didn't get to be part of it. Not this life. Not this joy. Not this throne. They stood on the outside of a kingdom they would never be allowed to enter. Because forgiveness does not always mean access. And grace does not mean returning to the people who taught you shame. I forgave them, yes, but I didn't open the door. And I never will. The palace grounds are quiet in the mornings. Too early for staff. Too late for guards to be alert. Just the rustle of wind through the ivy and the patter of 2 sets of small feet on cobblestone. Leora picks dandelions with the seriousness of a scholar. Thane chases birds with the clumsy joy only toddlers can get away with. And I sit on the stone bench beneath the fig tree, watching the children they tried to erase grow into royalty. It's not revenge I feel. It's something gentler, heavier too. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from no longer needing to remember. Sometimes staff ask if I want security to block press access on days like this. I always say no. Let them see. Let the world watch this quiet miracle. The girl they discarded, raising a crown that doesn't glitter with gold, but with grit. There's a room inside the palace they built just for me. Not a queen's chamber, not an office, a study. bookshelves from floor to ceiling, a writing desk, a window that opens toward the eastern sky. I spend my nights there sometimes, journaling. Not about the past, that chapter is closed, but about the future, about what I want my children to inherit, beyond land and name and legacy. I want them to inherit truth, to know that strength isn't always loud, that being chosen by someone else will never matter more than choosing yourself, that sometimes the family you need is the one you build, not the one you're born into, and that royalty isn't about bloodlines. It's about what you carry with grace, even when no one believed you could. Leora calls out, "Mom, look!" She holds up a crooked flower crown. Thane squeals and runs in circles, arms out like wings. I rise from the bench and walk toward them. Not a queen, not a cautionary tale, just a mother who did the impossible. And as I bend down, tuck the crown onto Leora's curls and kiss her forehead, I think. They bowed to the crown. But the crown? It came from me,